The anointed ones are to be welcomed. Some individuals engage in activities that carry a high risk of negative consequences, and subsequently express bewilderment at their subsequent experiences. However, in this particular instance, the nature of the fire was not ordinary. The anointed ones were cautioned to remain within their designated boundaries, or face the consequences. Nevertheless, they disregarded these warnings. It is an established historical pattern that engaging with the chosen can lead to hazardous outcomes. Those who disregard divine warnings often experience profound regrets, often in unexpected ways. It is akin to attempting to outpace a storm, only to discover that the storm has been assigned to one's own trajectory. Presently, we are observing the unavoidable unfolding of events. Those who presumed they could manipulate destiny, influence outcomes, and interfere with the divinely ordained course of events are encountering the harsh reality that karma does not favor those who trespass. If only they had recognized that they were self-imposing limitations. However, it is often through adversity that we learn. Today, we will delve into the consequences of disregarding the in this segment. We will examine the consequences of disregarding the ultimate warning. We will explore the repercussions of ignoring cautionary signs and the consequences of intervening in preordained events. This analysis will include a discussion of the false sense of control that individuals may experience when attempting to influence outcomes that are, in fact, predetermined. It will conclude with an examination of the consequences of such actions, including the potential for negative outcomes. Ultimate warning: be cautious of the consequences of one's actions, as they may lead to adverse outcomes. Spoiler alert: the consequences are often unintended and unexpected. The first example is characterized by the disregard of warnings and the construction of one's own downfall. When individuals attempt to interfere with a pre-established course of action, they often do so with a false sense of control. They believe they are clever and perhaps even invincible, and they think they can bend the rules to fit their own ambitions. However, when the chosen are involved, fate already has a plan in motion. Any interference only adds fuel to a fire that is destined to turn on them. They might think they are orchestrating someone else's downfall, only to find that they have been tightening their own noose all along. It begins subtly. Perhaps they get away with a few small actions and feel a rush of success. They ignore every inner warning and every chance to walk away. They keep pushing, convinced they are the chosen, are subject to a fate-driven plan, and any interference serves only to exacerbate the situation. Individuals may believe they are orchestrating the downfall of another, yet in reality, they are tightening the noose around their own necks. Initially, this may manifest in subtle ways, such as a few minor actions followed by a sense of success. However, they disregard internal warnings and missed opportunities to disengage. They persist in their actions, under the misguided belief that they are one step ahead. What they fail to recognize is that their actions are gradually converging to create a trap of their own making. They are so engrossed in outsmarting or outmaneuvering the chosen that they overlook the irony. The more they attempt to control, the more they are sealing their fate. Suddenly, the trap snaps shut, and their carefully crafted plans backfire in ways they never anticipated. Every step they took to harm, manipulate, or undermine someone, the character's actions are gradually and unwittingly conspiring to create a scenario of their own making. They are so focused on outsmarting or outmaneuvering the chosen that they miss the irony. The more they try to control, the more they're sealing their fate. Then, almost without warning, the trap snaps shut. Suddenly, the plans they crafted backfire in ways they never expected. Every step they took to harm, manipulate, or undermine someone else rebounds on them with tenfold force. By the time they realize what's happened, it's too late. They're caught in a fallout of their own creation, unable to undo what they set in motion. It's the ultimate twist of fate. They thought they were building a win, but they were really just building their own downfall. In trying to disrupt the chosen, they've walked themselves straight into the very chaos they intended for someone else. And now, there's no way to turn back. The consequences of their actions are often unintended and disproportionate, resulting in unintended consequences. The pursuit of envy-based ambition frequently obscures the full picture, leading to miscalculations. Individuals driven by ambition to ascend may neglect the potential repercussions to others, failing to recognize that their actions may inadvertently benefit their rivals. They may believe they are merely removing an obstacle, yet they may in fact be entering a complex and unpredictable situation with profound implications. These consequences may manifest as immediate thrills or a fleeting sense of power, yet the consequences of these actions are often far beyond the control of the individual. Individuals driven by this ambition may find themselves engulfed in chaos rather than propelled forward. They may believe they can outsmart, outmaneuver, and outshine their targets without any repercussions. However, ambition rooted in envy is rarely clear-cut. Amidst their endeavors, individuals may encounter immediate gratification or a transient sense of empowerment. However, they often neglect to consider the repercussions that are beyond their control. Propelled by their ambition, they inadvertently fuel a fire that, instead of propelling them forward, engulfs them in chaos. They assume they can simply outsmart, outmaneuver, and outshine their targets without any consequences. However, ambition rooted in envy is often characterized by a lack of clarity. It obscures their perception, causing them to perceive victory where in reality, they are sowing the seeds of their own defeat. Each modest achievement only serves to embolden them, leading them further down a path that is destined to unravel. Consequently, when the consequences of their actions become evident, they do not merely erode their plans, they completely dismantle them. Suddenly, the very things they were desperate to hold on to, status, control, and influence, begin to falter. The chosen are presented with a stark and unwelcome revelation: the illusion of their own ambition is, in fact, an illusion, a mask for insecurity that is now being laid bare for all to see. They had presumed that they could manipulate others without consequence, yet the cost proves to be higher than they had ever anticipated. Ultimately, their ambition has led them to the very loss they sought to avoid, the power they sought to steal. The spotlight, once desired, has now become a source of scrutiny, unveiling their inadequacies. They are compelled to confront a reality that they themselves have forged. Thirdly, there is the underestimation of the spiritual armor that surrounds the chosen. When individuals encounter the chosen, they frequently underestimate the spiritual protection that envelopes them. They might perceive someone who appears reserved, yet this individual is often well protected by unseen forces. The subjects of this study experienced a shift in the dynamics of their circumstances, leading to a series of unexpected setbacks. This shift was characterized by a loss of control over events, which the subjects found disconcerting. The subjects had initially believed that they had the ability to influence the outcome of the situation, but they found themselves unable to do so. This shift was attributed to the subjects' underestimation of the spiritual armor that the chosen individuals possessed. The subjects had difficulty perceiving the spiritual protection that the chosen individuals possessed, which was believed to be a factor in their resilience to external pressures. The subjects' inability to perceive this armor was attributed to their perception of the chosen individuals as being quiet or unassuming, and therefore susceptible to manipulation or overpowering. However, the subject's perception of the chosen individual's armor was based on a lack of awareness of the protective energy that shielded them from harm. This protective energy was believed to be a factor in the subject's inability to disrupt the chosen individual's divine alignment. The subject's attempts to disrupt this protective energy were believed to have resulted in a reverse effect, with the energy turning against them. The subject's attempts to disrupt the chosen individual's divine alignment were characterized by a subtle and gradual initiation of this reverse effect. Those who endeavor to interfere with the chosen are likely to encounter unexpected impediments, such as the dissolution of seemingly sound plans, and a sense of being overwhelmed by circumstances that defy rational explanation. This phenomenon, which may appear to be a form of divine intervention, is the result of an unseen protective energy that surrounds the chosen. Those who attempt to disrupt this energy are likely to experience a backlash, often manifesting as a series of minor setbacks, frustrations, and obstacles. The very plans that once seemed infallible begin to unravel, and the perceived control over events dissipates. Those who encounter this phenomenon are often taken aback by its perplexity and the inability to provide an explanation for the seemingly recurrent misfortunes. The perceived power and ingenuity of the individual is rendered ineffective against this unseen force. Those who attempt to interfere with the chosen encounter a series of unexpected impediments, including a loss of control over their circumstances. This phenomenon, which may appear paradoxical at first, is attributed to an unseen protective barrier surrounding the chosen. It is noteworthy that the more intense the attempts to interfere, the more significant the subsequent repercussions. This dynamic does not resemble the notion of karma, which is typically characterized by a passive response. Instead, it is an active and potent force that reflects the energy of the interfering individual back at them. Each attempt to interfere is met with a setback, leading to the realization that the challenges being faced are of a magnitude that exceeds the individual's abilities. They begin to perceive a sense of observation, confronted by forces that elude their control or manipulation. By the time they acknowledge the presence of something beyond their reach, it is often too late. The spiritual armor surrounding the chosen is not merely a myth, it is a tangible, undeniable force that is now retaliating with full intensity. They are confronted with the consequences of interfering with something this energy, intended as a shield, now functions as a constant reminder of. The boundaries that have been transgressed. Fourthly, the perceived vulnerabilities of the chosen were thought to be well understood. However, this was an erroneous assessment. Those who seek to undermine the chosen often do so with a confidence that approaches arrogance. They believe they have identified the chosen's weaknesses, under the assumption that these weaknesses can be exploited. Called flaws to gain the upper hand. Perhaps they perceive vulnerability in the chosen's benevolence or misconstrue patience as a sign of passivity. They assume they are discerning fissures, weak points they can exploit, yet they remain oblivious to a profound truth: these weaknesses are illusions, and each one is a lesson the chosen have already assimilated and transcended. The chosen did not succumb to these perceived vulnerabilities. Their ascent to their current status has not been the result of naivete or a lack of self-awareness. Each weakness has been acknowledged, scrutinized, and transformed into a source of strength. Their patience is not an indication of weakness, rather, it is a manifestation of a profound inner strength, a quiet, unshakable power that discerns the opportune moment to act and the moment to retreat. Their kindness is not an invitation to others to take advantage, but rather a conscious decision, knowing that the chosen one's greatest strength lies in remaining true to themselves, even in the face of aggression. Thus, when people try to exploit these qualities, they walk right into a trap of their own making. They assume that kindness means permission, that patience means inaction, and that compassion means weakness. However, this is a flawed logic in trying to strike at what they see as weakness. They're the ones who the chosen's greatest strength lies in their unwavering authenticity, which, when confronted with aggression, often leads to their own downfall. Individuals who seek to exploit these qualities often fall into a self-inflicted trap, operating under the flawed assumption that kindness equates to permission, that patience is synonymous with inaction, and that compassion is a sign of weakness. However, this logic is inherently flawed, as it attempts to target what is perceived as a vulnerability, yet it merely exposes the speaker's own lack of insight, insecurities, and a deep-seated hunger for power. In contrast, the chosen remain steadfast, unmoved by the trivialities of the situation. Ultimately, those who endeavor to undermine the chosen are left to grapple with their own inner struggles. It is only in the face of this realization, albeit belatedly, that the perceived weaknesses, which were once instruments of manipulation, are revealed to be mere reflections of the self. Those who seek to harm the chosen are often met with a swift and immediate response, a revelation that their actions are not without consequence. This response serves as a mirror, reflecting back the flaws and insecurities that were previously concealed. The realization that these weaknesses are, in fact, mirrors, is inevitable for those who try to harm the chosen. It is a realization that cannot be escaped. The cycle of karma is accelerating, offering no escape this time. In this era of intense spiritual acceleration, the cycle of karma is moving faster than ever before. Those who believe they can act with impunity are finding themselves unprepared when faced with the consequences of their actions. The consequences of their actions and decisions are immediate and overwhelming, disrupting the illusion of autonomy and control. Individuals who have long operated under the assumption of a gradual and latent response to their actions are now confronted with a swift and unrelenting retribution. The notion of a wait has become a futile expectation. The accelerating cycle of karma is a phenomenon that cannot be disregarded. In this period of rapid spiritual transformation, the cycle is operating at an unprecedented velocity. Individuals who presume to act with impunity, under the illusion of time, are swiftly and abruptly confronted with the repercussions of their actions. The notion of a wait is no longer applicable. The cycle of karma is operating with a swiftness that leaves no space for denial or delay. Those who have attempted to inflict harm upon the chosen are facing an immediate and unavoidable backlash. Actions elicit immediate and swift repercussions. Those who have attempted to harm the chosen have encountered an immediate and unavoidable backlash. Each choice, intention, and action has significant consequences, and the repercussions are overwhelming. The consequences have been caused by the seeds of deceit, envy, and manipulation that have been sown. The consequences have returned to those who have attempted to manipulate others in a short amount of time. Those who have attempted to manipulate others are unprepared to handle the consequences. They may feel like they are running, but they are in fact being chased. The consequences of one's actions and intentions are of paramount importance, and they can be sudden and severe. Those who have sown seeds of deceit, envy, and manipulation, under the assumption that they could outmaneuver the outcome, are now facing the reality that their actions are returning to them with unprecedented speed and intensity. They may feel as if they are running in circles, attempting to evade the inevitable, but this time, there is no escape. The universe is moving at an accelerated pace, its rhythms more intense, and it is closing in on those who thought they could manipulate others without repercussion. With each attempt to evade responsibility, they are confronted with another consequence, each one more severe than the last. They will eventually realize that they are trapped in a self in an attempt to evade the inevitable. Individuals find themselves navigating increasingly complex and dynamic circumstances. The universe is undergoing accelerated transformation, its rhythms more intense, and its influence is becoming more pervasive. Those who believe they could manipulate others without consequence are now facing consequences that are increasingly severe. Each attempt to evade responsibility is met with a more stringent consequence, leading to a state of internal conflict and a sense of being trapped with no possibility of escape. This acceleration is not random, it is a reflection of a new energy in a heightened awareness that demands accountability in the present, not in the future. Those who have acted with malice toward the chosen cannot avoid the consequences of their actions. They are being forced to face the consequences of their actions, and as the weight of their actions bears down, they are left with no option but to confront the truth. Number 6. Those who attempted to play God are now experiencing the consequences of their actions. Some individuals develop the illusion that they possess the ability to influence the destiny of others. They believe they have the power to determine who succeeds and who fails, as if they hold supreme authority. In the case of the chosen, this belief is particularly strong. They perceive someone who aligns with a higher purpose and decide they want a truth. Number 6 asserts that individuals who attempt to exercise divine-like powers over others often face negative consequences. Some people develop the belief that they possess the ability to influence the destiny of others, leading them to believe that they have the ultimate authority over those around them. This belief is particularly strong in the case of those who are seen as being in alignment with a higher purpose. These individuals may seek to control, alter, or even destroy the path of those who they perceive as being in alignment with a higher purpose. This belief is a dangerous illusion, as it leads to the belief that one has the right to play God. However, it is important to recognize that there is only one true orchestrator of fate, and that orchestrator is not the individual in question. When these individuals attempt to take on this role, they inadvertently invite forces that are beyond their control. This arrogance builds a false empire around them, one that is built on manipulation, control, and the belief that they are It is perilous to assume the capacity to manipulate or alter the course of destiny. The belief that one possesses the authority to act as a supreme entity, intervening in the affairs of others, is a fallacy. When individuals endeavor to assume this role, they inadvertently summon forces that transcend their control. This hubris fosters the development of a facade of invincibility, erected on the foundations of manipulation, control, and the self-perception of impunity. For a period, they may experience a sense of invincibility, encircled by the structures of influence that they have meticulously constructed over extended periods. They manipulate, lay traps, and maneuver others as if they were chess pieces, in an attempt to impose their will upon the life of the chosen individual. However, they fail to perceive the fissures that emerge beneath their feet, the silent unraveling that commences the moment they transgress the threshold. Each action they undertake to assert their dominion over others is a potential catalyst for this unraveling. The subjects of this study may experience a sense of invincibility when surrounded by the structures of influence they have developed over time. They may manipulate others, set traps, and exert control over their lives in an attempt to force their will upon the chosen individual. However, they may not perceive the latent flaws that begin to emerge once they cross a certain threshold. Each action they take to assert their authority over others only serves to strengthen the forces that are ultimately directed against them. Suddenly, just when they feel most secure, they are confronted with a backlash. Their empire of control begins to crumble, piece by piece, as their sources of power become inaccessible. Relationships deteriorate, alliances turn against them, and plans that once seemed certain begin to falter. The chosen ones, who have sought to exert their dominion over others, find themselves in a precarious position. Their efforts to manipulate events according to their will are met with resistance, leading to a backlash that ultimately proves to be their undoing. Their empire, once a bastion of control, begins to disintegrate as the very foundations upon which they relied begin to slip away. Relationships become strained, alliances shift, and plans that once seemed infallible begin to falter. The chosen ones are confronted with the stark reality that they have attempted to manipulate fate to suit their desires, only to have fate reclaim its power. The force they invoked, intended to remove their control, merely exposes the vacuity behind it. Their empire crumbles, and they are left to witness the complete undoing of everything they thought they could command. The concept of divine patience is not without limits, and the chosen have recently encountered theirs. Those chosen walk a path that is not only protected by unseen forces but also by a patience that extends beyond human comprehension. This patience is often a shield, a grace that gives others room to change, reconsider their actions, and make amends. Those who test the chosen may sense this patience as in the chosen are characterized by their ability to exercise patience, a quality that is often misunderstood by those who test its limits. Their patience is perceived as a form of weakness or passivity, leading individuals to believe that they can continue to challenge boundaries with confidence, under the assumption that they will never face severe consequences. However, it is crucial to recognize that even divine patience has its limits, and once these limits are transgressed, there is no possibility of reversing the situation, even if it has been a long time. This patience enables the chosen to make decisions freely and to face challenges with resilience. They were given opportunities to reflect on their actions and potentially alter their course, yet they disregarded the indications that something was amiss. Instead of heeding these warnings, they chose to dismiss them, continuing to act in a manner that served their own inclinations and vulnerabilities. The more they disregarded the opportunities presented to them, the closer they became to the brink of consequences. The subject's actions and subsequent inaction resulted in a state of affairs that they could not have foreseen. When a threshold is reached, the consequences are inevitable. The shift is unmistakable. The subject's formerly subdued energy becomes unstoppable, and they become unable to escape its effects. The consequences of their actions, which they had previously ignored, become unavoidable. The subject's past choices, which they had made in secret, are now brought to light, and the consequences of these choices become apparent. The subject's reserves of patience were depleted, leading to a series of events that were not anticipated. Their actions, once cloaked in secrecy, are now exposed, and the shield of patience, erroneously perceived as a sign of weakness, has been withdrawn completely. Consequently, they are compelled to confront the consequences of their actions, with limited opportunities for maneuver. The opportunities that were previously available have been exhausted, the warnings have been issued, and the course of action they have chosen is a consequence of their own actions. The subject's actions were enabled by a belief in divine patience, which granted them a period of time to reconsider their choices. They have been granted time to make judicious choices, yet they have chosen to disregard this opportunity. Consequently, they are now confronted with the realization that they are no longer in a position to exercise control over their actions. The eighth principle asserts that the belief in operating in obscurity provides a sense of invincibility. Individuals engage in clandestine activities, convinced that their actions will evade detection. However, when it comes to the chosen assume that their clandestine actions will evade detection, operating under the illusion that their subterfuge will go unnoticed. They take solace in the belief that they are shielded by the darkness, a delusion that imbues them with the audacity to transgress boundaries they would not contemplate overtly. However, what they neglect to recognize is that the chosen are profoundly intertwined with a higher power. The chosen are believed to operate with the assumption that their clandestine actions will evade detection, operating under the belief that they are capable of manipulating circumstances without facing any repercussions. They derive comfort from the notion that they are shielded by a veil of secrecy, a fallacy that imbues them with the fortitude to transgress boundaries that they would not consider crossing overtly. However, what is often overlooked is the fact that the chosen are intricately linked to a higher awareness, a spiritual intuition that has the capacity to penetrate facades and unveil truths that lie beneath layers of deception. The chosen may initially choose to refrain from direct confrontation with their opponents. They may exhibit an air of indifference, seemingly oblivious to the events unfolding in their absence. However, this apparent lack of concern is not a result of ignorance, rather, it is a deliberate strategy of maintaining a state of awareness that all matters will eventually come to light. The chosen are adept at sensing this heightened sensitivity to subtle changes in their environment, particularly the ripple effects of hidden intentions directed towards them, is a hallmark of their awareness. While this awareness may not unveil specific details, it provides sufficient insight to discern targeted attacks and to prepare for impending events. The patience exhibited by the chosen is not passivity, rather, it is a quiet confidence in the eventual revelation of truth. The phenomenon under scrutiny involves the recognition that intentions directed towards an individual or group can have long-reaching consequences, despite the possibility of such intentions remaining concealed. This awareness, while not providing exhaustive details, is sufficient to prompt an understanding that targeted individuals are aware of the ongoing efforts aimed at their detriment. This awareness is not indicative of passive compliance, rather, it embodies a tranquil confidence in the eventual disclosure of the truth, irrespective of any direct intervention. The present scenario has led to the exposure of those who previously operated in clandestine circumstances. Their actions, once shrouded in secrecy, are now being brought to the forefront of public scrutiny. The chosen individual's steadfast and unyielding disposition serves as a beacon, illuminating the truth with a brilliance that no amount of concealment can fully obscure. Those who believe themselves to be secure in their seclusion often come to realize, albeit belatedly, the futility of attempting to evade the pervasive higher awareness. The forces that were sought to be manipulated have been revealed to be in opposition, thus illuminating the actions of the intervening parties. The chosen maintain their position, requiring no further action than to allow the truth to manifest. Ultimately, those who sought refuge in obscurity are confronted with the consequences they believed would never come to pass. The ninth individual engaged in minor actions. The forces they sought to manipulate have ultimately proven to be counterproductive, casting an unrelenting spotlight on their actions and revealing their true nature. The chosen maintain their steadfastness, opting to allow the truth to speak for itself without resorting to any further actions. In the end, those who sought refuge in the shadows are confronted with the very consequences they believed would never come to pass. Number 9 engaged in power games, yet they stirred a giant. The chosen are often perceived as peaceful, composed individuals who navigate their path with grace and wisdom. However, some misinterpret their calmness as weakness, perceiving it as a sign that they can be controlled, manipulated, or played with. What these individuals fail to realize is that the peace the chosen embody is not a reflection of passivity. The chosen are often perceived as passive, yet their energy is not to be underestimated. Their inner power and spiritual strength are evident in their ability to withstand external pressures, resist manipulation, and maintain their course. When confronted with attempts to test their boundaries or influence their decisions, the chosen may appear to be passive. However, their resilience and strength are often underestimated by those who underestimate the power of these individuals. The manifestation of inner power and spiritual strength is not easily comprehensible. When others attempt to test the boundaries of the chosen, manipulate their decisions, or control their path, they misjudge the forces they're dealing with. They believe they're playing small power games, thinking they can win with tricks and schemes. However, they fail to see that they've just stirred up a giant force. The chosen's energy is not something to be underestimated. They don't need to raise their voice or assert dominance to make an impact. Their mere presence, their connection to a higher purpose, is more powerful than any game of manipulation. Yet, when others test that, when they think they can control or sway the chosen through deceitful, the chosen's energy is formidable and should not be underestimated. Their ability to make an impact does not require the use of force or the attempt to dominate others. Their mere presence and connection to a higher purpose is more powerful than any form of manipulation. However, when others test the limits of this connection by employing deceitful tactics, they trigger a response that far exceeds their expectations. It is as though they had provoked a bear, unaware that they were dealing with something ancient and unstoppable. The small games they thought were playing have backfired in a significant way. The forces they provoked are now gaining momentum, and the consequences are becoming more severe. The consequences are not merely setbacks, they are life-altering. What appeared to be a harmless attempt to outsmart or dominate the chosen now appears to be a catastrophic miscalculation. The game has shifted, and those who attempted to control are left in a state of bewilderment, observing as everything they once thought they could control unravels before them. The failure to consider the divine blueprint has led to disastrous consequences. Every chosen one is born with a divine blueprint, a higher calling, and a unique path that they are meant to follow. This blueprint is not merely a concept, it is the very essence of their purpose, woven into their being from the moment they are conceived. The chosen might not always have a clear picture of it at first, but as they navigate life, they begin to feel its pull, guiding them toward their destiny and pushing them forward. Disregarding the divine blueprint has been demonstrated to have far-reaching consequences. Every chosen one is born with a divine blueprint, a higher calling, and a unique path that they are meant to follow. This blueprint is not merely a conceptual framework, it is the very essence of their purpose, intricately woven into their being from the moment of conception. Initially, the chosen may not fully comprehend their blueprint, however, as they navigate life, they begin to feel its pull, guiding them towards their destiny and propelling them towards greatness. In contrast, those who stand against the chosen often find the concept of the divine plan to be incomprehensible. They perceive an opportunity to manipulate and control, believing they can rewrite the chosen one's path and impose their will upon something greater than themselves. However, these individuals fail to recognize that disregarding the divine blueprint is not a trivial act. It is not something that can be altered with a few manipulative moves. The notion that one can simply disregard the divine blueprint is misguided. When individuals attempt to interfere, they often fail to recognize the extent of their actions. Their actions disrupt a much larger system than they can comprehend. They assume they have the capacity to control fate, alter the trajectory of someone's life, and trigger a chain reaction that will lead to their own undoing. However, they are now witnessing the unfolding consequences of their actions and realizing a critical point: disregarding the divine blueprint isn't merely. The consequences of disregarding the divine blueprint are twofold, futile and destructive. As they attempted to impede the chosen, they only succeeded in derailing themselves. Their attempts to impose their own will have not only failed, but they've also set in motion a sequence of events that are now spiraling out of their control. They're facing the harsh reality that no amount of manipulation can undo what was always meant to be. In their attempt to block someone else's divine path, they've only destroyed their own. The pursuit of self-destruction, fueled by a relentless tendency to compare and envy the chosen, has become a pervasive force in their lives. The futility of these efforts, which initially appeared to be effective, has become evident. The attempts to manipulate the chosen have not only failed to yield the desired outcome, but they have also set in motion a sequence of events that have rapidly escalated beyond their control. The realization that their actions have irreparably damaged their own lives, and the subsequent inability to reverse the course of events, has been a sobering and difficult pill to swallow. It has become evident that the pursuit of self-destruction has become an all-consuming endeavor, and the negative emotions that initially manifested as a mere sentiment of resentment have now evolved into a full-fledged addiction. This process can be likened to an addiction, which begins subtly and yet grows over time, gradually consuming the individual's psyche. Initially, it manifests as a quiet grudge, a fleeting thought of jealousy or contempt. However, over time, it becomes deeply ingrained, shaping every thought, conversation, and action. The individual begins to perceive the world through the lens of envy and hate, feeding off the belief that the chosen possess what they lack. This dynamic gradually becomes their identity, shaping their worldview and interactions. They find themselves unable to stop comparing, judging, and resenting others. This is not merely a momentary lapse in judgment, it is an all-encompassing addiction. Addiction to negativity is a consuming obsession that manifests in a variety of ways. Initially, it may appear as a quiet grudge, a passing thought of jealousy, or contempt. However, over time, it becomes deeply entrenched in the individual's psyche, influencing every thought, conversation, and action. The individual begins to perceive the world through a lens of envy and hate, feeding on the idea that the chosen have something they do not. This addiction gradually becomes a part of their identity, shaping their world and interactions. They cannot stop comparing, judging, and resenting. It is not merely a momentary lapse, it is an all-consuming obsession. What these people do not realize is that this addiction to negativity does not just remain on the surface. It begins to warp their perception of everything, clouding their judgment and twisting their reality. What once was a fleeting emotion now defines them. Their entire existence revolves around feeding this dark need to bring others down. However, here is the cruel truth: the more they indulge in this darkness, the more it controls them. It may have started as a reaction to the chosen's rise, but now it has become their master. The darkness they unleashed, thinking, the subjects of this study could potentially wield the phenomenon under investigation to inflict harm upon others. However, in this case, the phenomenon has seemingly reversed itself, becoming a source of internal distress for the subjects. This reversal has led to a state of internal conflict, eroding the subject's peace, joy, and sense of self. It appears that the subjects are unable to escape the negative consequences of their own toxic addiction. As they attempt to maintain their negative emotions, they experience a loss of their previous state of being. This loss includes their clarity, happiness, and, ultimately, their identity. It is evident that the more the subjects attempt to maintain their negative emotions, the more they are affected, leading to a state of emptiness and a loss of their former selves. Subject 12. The warning was interpreted as a threat rather than a gift, indicating a misinterpretation of its intended meaning. When the chosen offer a warning, it is not a threat, it is a gift. This warning is a moment of grace, meant to give others a chance to pause, reflect, and change course before they further engage in destructive behaviors. The chosen are connected to higher wisdom and purpose, seeing the bigger picture. Their warnings are often subtle, delivered with the intention of offering insight, a chance for redemption, and the opportunity to correct their path. However, far too often, this is not the case. The chosen offer warnings as a benevolent act, not a form of coercion. However, their warnings are often misinterpreted. Those who receive these warnings misconstrue the chosen's caution as a sign of weakness or an empty threat, disregarding it under the assumption of their invincibility and the belief that they are beyond the consequences. They fail to acknowledge that the warning is intended to benefit them, not as a challenge or an ultimatum, but as an act of compassion. Due to their arrogance, they disregard the message and persist in their reckless behavior, believing they can outsmart fate or that they are immune to consequences. The natural laws of the universe are often disregarded by those who fail to recognize that the chosen are not merely providing a heads-up. Instead, they are offering a gift of time, a chance to recognize their own flaws before it is too late. As the consequences of their choices unfold, it becomes evident that the warning was not merely a casual remark but rather a pivotal moment. The opportunity to redeem themselves, which was previously thought to be a fleeting moment of weakness, has now passed. The chosen have been shown to possess a certain degree of insight into the natural laws of the universe. However, they have failed to recognize that this insight is not merely a matter of forewarning, but rather an offer of a temporal reprieve. This reprieve is intended to facilitate the identification of personal deficiencies prior to the occurrence of deleterious consequences. It is only in the wake of these consequences that the realization occurs that the opportunity to rectify one's actions has been irrevocably lost. The period of weakness, which was initially perceived as a mere passing phase, has in fact marked the final opportunity for introspection and modification of one's course. Consequently, the individuals in question are confronted with the poignant realization that by neglecting this offer, they have effectively sealed their own destiny. The possibility of a positive transformation has been extinguished, and they are now compelled to confront the consequences of their own actions. Ultimately, those who sought to challenge the chosen failed to fully comprehend the profound implications of their actions. They erroneously assumed that they could manipulate, control, or outsmart a force that surpassed them, underestimating the latent power. Those who sought to challenge the chosen underestimated the magnitude of their actions, misjudging the quiet power and divine protection that surrounded the chosen. Each step they took to disrupt, attack, or undermine was met with the universal law of cause and effect, karma, returning to strike faster and harder than they could have ever anticipated. They failed to realize that every time they ignored the divine blueprint, dismissed the warnings, or indulged in negativity, they weren't just testing the chosen, they were setting themselves up for a fall. The path of the chosen is one of strength. The chosen are guided by a sense of purpose, and they are protected by forces that are beyond their comprehension or control. Their enemies, perceiving them as vulnerable, sought to break them down, but in reality, they were up against the forces of fate, which are inherently unstoppable. The chosen stand in the path of divine destiny, and every attempt to derail them only serves to further empower them. As the consequences of their actions unfold, those who acted against the chosen are now confronted with the truth that they could not have anticipated. Guided by a sense of purpose and protected by forces that eluded their understanding and control, the antagonists believed they were confronting individuals susceptible to defeat. However, they encountered forces that defied their control, forces that represented the divine destiny of the chosen. Any attempt to derail the chosen only served to strengthen the unstoppable power within them. As the consequences of their actions unfold, the antagonists are compelled to face the truth they had sought to evade. Their actions, driven by a desire to manipulate destiny or indulge in envy, ultimately led to their downfall. Their arrogance caused them to disregard warnings, and they are now forced to confront the reality that the universe always restores balance. The chosen were never in danger, it was always those who sought to defeat them who played with fire. As the foundations they built crumble under the weight of their misguided actions, they are left to watch. Actions. If the veracity of this message resonated with you, and you find yourself compelled by its profound insights, it would be advisable to proceed by selecting the subscribe option. This will ensure that you will be informed of future opportunities to engage with profound narratives, concealed realities, and the forces that exert influence on our world. By embarking on this journey of enlightenment, you will find yourself in the company of a select few, a group that has been chosen to participate in this endeavor. The ongoing transmission of energy is contingent upon the continuation of this process. To maintain your position within this network, it is imperative to subscribe and remain attentive for further revelations that will ensure your continued relevance and informed status. It is strongly recommended that you do not allow yourself to be excluded from these opportunities.